Hey guys, Pedro here to tell you about the latest from Megadeth, self-titled Megadeth, out January 23rd on Black to Black. This album has 11 tracks, technically 10 plus a bonus, and it's 47 minutes in length. This is the band's 17th full-length studio record, and they are an American thrash metal band. Now, from a design standpoint, the album starts off as strong as you would expect from any Megadeth record. I think if you go down the line as far as their discography is concerned, they always start records with really strong, intense, aggressive, super driven songs. This record is no different, so definitely offers that sort of old school Megadeth experience right from the get-go. Super driven, but it does lose not a little bit of steam, it just loses a little bit of momentum because it doesn't stay necessarily consistent with that sort of experience from top to bottom. This is also something that's not new for the band. This design really falls in line with a lot of other albums that Megadeth has released. So it's a record that feels a lot more consistent in the first half, or in the first third, if you will, if you want to be more precise. And then it becomes a lot more dynamic, offering a lot more ebbs and flows as you dive deeper into the record, as you get into the last third of the album. The record closes off with The Last Note. I think this is a very important song. I want to talk more about it. And then after that comes a bonus track, Ride the Lightning, Metallica cover. I'm also going to be talking more about it. So it's a great design, or at least it's a design that falls in line with the greatness of the band and with the discography of the band. And it definitely allows the listener to feel connected with the record from the get-go, which then allows the listener to better digest the differences and uniquenesses that come at the bottom end of the album. Once you get into the sound, this is definitely old school Megadeth. If I had to place this album, if I didn't know that this is a new record, and I have to place this album in the existing discography of the band, this record sounds like something that would have been released between Countdown to Extinction and Euthanasia. It has a lot of the elements that I saw on both of those albums. It has a lot of that era of Megadeth in the sound of this record, and it minimizes a lot of the issues that perhaps myself, maybe others had with Euthanasia, in terms of how that album changed the sound and even felt at the time like it was changing the direction that Megadeth was taking. So this album would fit in that era, in between those two records, and to me that's a great thing because it's a more old school sounding Megadeth record all around, but it's also an album that has a lot of old school Megadeth elements, not just in the sound, but I found in the vocal approach and even in the way the lyrics are put together for this record, reminiscing at that time period. So I like this approach sonically because it feels old school, because you can connect with a lot of songs and a lot of albums from that time period, but it still has a more modern touch, a more modern production that we saw a lot of it beyond Euthanasia. So it's an album that brings in the past, represents the present, and I'm not going to say that looks into the future because this is supposed to be the band's closing album. So it's definitely an homage to the greatness of the band sonically. Perhaps the golden years of Megadeth are represented on this album, just put forward in a more modern way, with a more modern touch, with a more modern twist. Now, within this sonic experience that it is, this Megadeth record, you obviously have to talk about two main key elements: the drums and guitars. I gotta say, the drums on this album sounded really good top to bottom. Very strong, with a lot of substance, with a lot of size, really helping make these tracks feel not just robust and intense and sometimes aggressive, but also giving them a soul and making them feel like they could be played in an arena. They have this arena style approach to their sound, which is not necessarily something from old school Megadeth, if you will, but it's definitely something that's more modern as far as Megadeth sound is concerned. So I like this drum sound because it has the energy, the attitude of the earlier days of the band, but definitely has the production and size of the more modern sounding Megadeth records. Now, once you get into the guitars, this is perhaps one of the best guitar sounding albums that the band has released in a very long time. I would have to go back to the days of Marty Friedman to find a better sounding guitar album than this one. Guitar wise, there's really no flaws on this record. Super rich, super texture. I love the solo sections on this album. There's not a single bad solo on this entire record. It's an album that guitar-wise offers a lot to the listener, really focuses on the guitars. It allows the guitars to be not only the main driver of the experience on each and every single song, it allows the guitars to really be one of the main focuses of everything that's happening on this record. I also love how rich the guitars are. Not afraid to throw in some acoustic guitars, not afraid to go in with some more melancholic guitar pieces. This album really has a wide variety of textures and sounds, all of them connected with the history and discography of the band, but just executed at such a high level, top to bottom, that makes the album immediately stand out from that standpoint. Now, once you get into the vocals, vintage Megadeth. I don't think I could have asked for a better album vocally from Dave Mustaine. He sounds as good today as he's ever sounded. This album is exactly what I was expecting from him. The way he pronounces the words, the way he approaches the songs. Vocally, this album is Megadeth through and through. The one aspect that I want to emphasize connected to the vocal performance is the lyrical content. I'm not necessarily a fan of the lyrics on every single song on this record. There are some lyrics on this album that feel a little bit dated, if you will, or perhaps are not going to age well if you look at this album down the line. But there's so many songs on this record that have incredible lyrics that really feel also like a throwback to songs like Peace Sells or Holy Wars, or even songs from Countdown to Extinction, like Countdown to Extinction or Foreclosure of a Dream. Like, a lot of the tracks on those records, those specific songs that I mentioned, had really memorable lyrics that had an impact and that represented that era and what was going on in the world at that time period. Funny enough, a lot of that stuff still going on today. So those songs and those lyrics aged, terribly in terms of the world not changing a bit as far as how dark it was back then and how dark it is now. But in terms of the quality of the lyrics, they aged like a fine wine. So there's a lot of songs on this record that I feel have similar attributes, and that to me was a great bonus to have on an album like this, because it's hard to sometimes connect with certain lyrics if you don't necessarily connect with the message within the lyrics. And I felt like they did a really good job on this album overall, creating lyrics that represent the world around, but a lot of the lyrics on this album represent the men who wrote them. And I think representing the men who wrote them, but writing them in the way that we can all relate to it, is the best approach always. You want to write about something that's important to you, but you want to write it in a way that doesn't come across preachy. It rather comes across as this is an open letter and who else feels the same way. So I like the way they took, and I like the approach that they took lyrically on this album, and it definitely surprised me by the vast majority in terms of how good the lyrics were outside of some songs here and there. Now, overall, if this is really going to be their last record, and I believe it will be their last record, specifically when you look at a song like The Last Note, there is perhaps no better way to go. I honestly felt like this album paid homage to the golden years of the band, to the band's greatest records, and at the same time it had that modern touch that we've seen from the band over the last couple of decades. So I feel like this is an album that really completes itself and completes the discography of the band, and it finishes on a great note, having a song like The Last Note to close off and then a Metallica cover. I don't think you could close a chapter, or a book in this case, not a chapter, a chapter in terms of the album, a book in terms of the band's discography. I don't think you could do it in any better way, and this album definitely made me relive some of the greatest moments of the band, and it had a lot of nostalgia built into it. So I think the fans of the band, the fans of the genre, definitely going to connect with this album. I don't think this is going to be a disappointing record, considering that it will be the band's last record. As far as favorite songs, I gotta start off with Hey God. I'm extremely shocked that this song wasn't one of the first singles, because this song is one of the best songs on the entire record. From a lyrical standpoint, from a vocal standpoint, from a structural standpoint, from a musical standpoint, this song is absolutely aces. I love the darkness that it has. It's edgy, it's uncompromising in terms of the lyrical content, but even in the sound. and the way the vocals come across to a certain extent, really reminding me of vintage Megadeth as far as the riffs are concerned. The overall sound is great, the vocal delivery is great, the track has a great vibe, the chorus is excellent, super melodic from a vocal standpoint, really feeling a little bit more rich as far as the vocals are concerned once it gets into that chorus, which adds to the overall catchiness and hookiness, how hooky this chorus is. The guitars have a bite, they have an edge to them, and that's an important aspect to the song to really drive the song home, the message of the song home. Great solo section, outstanding solo section on this track, and this is a song that vibe-wise, it reminded me of Countdown to Extinction. The album overall had a lot of songs with this very similar vibe, really attitude and no holds bar, not holding back, just putting everything out there. So this song definitely reminded me, not necessarily of the sound of that album, but definitely of the attitude, and specifically the attitude in the lyrics that that record had. Then we have The Last Note. This is technically the last song from the band, and it's the last song on the record before the bonus track. And this is the darkest, most melancholic song that the record has. Now, it's not necessarily a dark, melancholic song all the way through. It still has some fast moments, it has some intensity, some aggression to it. But the way it presents itself from a lyrical standpoint, but even from a musical standpoint, it really gives you the sense of finality. This is Dave Mustaine saying goodbye to the fans, to the band, to the music he loves. It's almost like not just a note to others, but a note to himself. Now, if you look at the lyrics, he leaves the door slightly open. He doesn't completely close the chapter, but it comes very close. Maybe he closes the chapter, or he closes the door, he just doesn't lock it. So maybe that's another way to approach it. So for those that have a positive outlook at life, you're going to look at the song and you're going to look at those elements and you're going to say, wow, so there's a chance there might be something else in the future. For those of us that look at the glass is always half empty, you're going to look at this song and saying, well, this is his goodbye. Musically and lyrically, this is his goodbye. This is his last note. I love, once again, the guitar sound throughout the entire track. Perhaps the richest sounding song from a guitar standpoint on the entire album. Love the acoustic elements. I love the drop, the restart, the closing with the acoustic, the vocals at the end. I mean, this is an absolute curtain coming down, final salvo as far as Megadeth is concerned. Then comes the bonus track, Ride the Lightning, a Metallica cover. Let's call it what it is, because that's what it is. I know Dave Mustaine wrote the song, or co-wrote the song, but this is really a Metallica cover. Now, vocally, it's really hard to listen to this song without James' vocals. It's just impossible not to think about that when you're listening to the track. Not that Dave Mustaine's vocals on this track don't work, because they do. But it's really hard to look at this song without that aspect to it. Sonically, to me, this is better than the original. But obviously, it has a different production behind it. It's modern. The production is modern. It's hard to compare the original Ride the Lightning with this song. From a pure production standpoint, it's hard to compare the two. But overall, sonically, this is definitely a better track than what the original was. It feels bigger, it feels heavier, it has more size, it has more impact, it's richer sounding. It's just a more complete body of work sonically all around, almost making the original feel more like a demo and this one feeling more like the final track. I would have loved to hear this song played this way by these guys, but with James on vocals. Now that is something that I would love to hear, and it would be really interesting to see how that would turn out. Alright, Megadeth with their self-titled record Megadeth, the last album by the band according to Dave Mustaine. Once again, coming out January 23rd on Black to Black. Let me know your thoughts on Megadeth, on their career, discography, on this record, singles, whatever it is that you want to talk about Megadeth-wise. Hit me up in the comment section. I'll see you all at the next one. Take care, guys.